week. I had App State, Texas plus 11, Duke minus 17.5, Alabama 16.5, Wisconsin 10.5. That was a joke. Penn State minus 3.5, Boise minus 11.5. That was a joke. And one of my losses was Florida plus 13. They lose by 14. So like, I think I'm turning a bit of a corner here. I'll even go as far as to say that the Rutgers one really wasn't that bad of a beat. Toledo, though, I think it might be time to stop betting against Bowling Green. Doesn't matter. It might be time. I mean, they just won. I have no idea how they won that football game, but that's neither here nor there.
It was kind of a wacky game. I was checking in on it because it was jumping out to me, oh my gosh, they have a lead. And then, oh my gosh, they still have a lead. Oh my gosh, they're going to win this football game. That was a bigger upset point spread wise than the South Carolina-Georgia victory. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it. I mean, South Carolina at least is an SEC school.
It was the biggest, I think, upset we've had this season.
26.5 points was when it went off at kickoff.
I don't know if we've had a bigger upset than that. Anyway, you're back. I'm feeling pretty much back right now. I am in the black. I'm at $215 just to set the table here. Phil and I each started the season with $200 to play. We have 3 tiers of bets. We have a $10 bet, which is pretty much a strong lean. We feel good, but we have some worries. And then a $15 bet is kind of your middle of the road. We like this bet. This is a good play. $20 bet is our lock. And we limit ourselves to $20 so that we don't, put all of our money on 1 or 2 games and then don't talk about a lot of games. So we kind of spread our money out on these 3 tiers and kind of bet like crazy. I've got a lot of games this week. How many games are you looking at?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 games. Looking at 13 bets. We'll see if I actually go through with all of them as we get going.
Yeah, I'm up to about 15 bets that I like for this week. I don't know if I'm going to go, all of them. I'll talk to you about some of them and see what you think. Get your thoughts if you can steer me in the right direction. I don't know, because maybe if you're turning a corner, I could use that advice. I looked at my record this year. I am 35-35-1 overall on bets. However, I am when it's against the spread only, and you take out the over-unders, I'm 31-22-1. So I'm doing really well against the spread. I'm 4-13 on over-unders. I have 2 over-unders. I know. It's so bad. And some of them have been literally half point, 1 point losses. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of staying away from it. I have 2 over-unders I like. I won't bet them, but I'm going to actually talk them out and feel them out as I usually would and then not play them and just kind of track them to see if I can turn that around.
Yeah, it's funny. I always talk about that accuracy pool I'm in, and I'm still in 4th place, gained 17 units on 1st place this week, went 8-2 overall. I finally got back.
This is for the NFL.
This is for the NFL. But I finally got back to 500 in over-unders after starting off bad. And I just don't think I'm going to bet over-unders there either anymore. I'm just happy to be at 500 percentage-wise. I don't know what it is. I just can't get a read on over-unders either. It's like the curse of us. We need a lesson in how to bet over-unders because neither one of us is very good at it. There's only 2 that I'm looking at this week. It'll be interesting to see if we have the same ones. But, I think we should just hop into some games here, Will, and just start rattling them off since it seems like we have a lot to cover this week.
We do have a lot to cover. I don't know if there's anything you want to necessarily recap from last week. I will say I did all my bets. Late night locks. Last week I said where it was Boise minus 11.5 and Washington minus 6.5. Those both hit for me. That was huge. Overall, we had a pretty similar day. We were both on Duke, both on Alabama, both on Penn State, both on Texas. I was on the good side of Indiana minus 28. They covered that with a 35-0 win against Rutgers. We were both on Virginia. Also, we will get into Miami and all of that, but I agree. Let's just get into it.
Let's just get into it. So let's start off. I don't know if you have anything on the Thursday night game, but there's a game that used to be a big game and now is no longer a big game, and it's UCLA at Stanford. And of course, I have to say it's not a big game because anybody who's been following us from the start knows that you're a Stanford guy. And Stanford and UCLA are both bad this year. They're just flat out bad. Will, do you have anything on this game, or is this a game that you're completely ignoring?
No, I do. I have a play.
You would. I don't. I figured you might though. So this is a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fading all season long. I've been fading Stanford for most of this season, and it's been paying off pretty well for me. They really aren't a good football team by any means. but UCLA is on a different tier of bad, especially this season. We look at Stanford's last game. They beat Washington. UCLA's last game, they lost to Oregon State. Big difference there. And I know we talk a lot on this podcast about bounce back games and letdown games and all that kind of psychological stuff, but that is kind of mitigated when both of these teams are coming off of bye weeks. So I don't see that kind of being an issue where UCLA is looking to bounce back and Stanford's kind of cocky with its Washington win. It's had, a week to celebrate, and now it's focused on UCLA, who they don't even need to be that focused against to beat. Stanford historically is a much better team at home. We've already seen that this season with that Washington upset coming at the Farm. And like I said with UCLA, I mean, they're a mess. We watched that Arizona UCLA, that full game 2 weeks ago, and we did not have to. So I actually like Stanford here. It's at -7 and a touchdown.
I had 6.5 actually. So you've dropped.
Oh, perfect. I love that deal. I was going to say, I could see a push. I could see this being Stanford by a touchdown, but the 6.5 actually does make me feel a whole lot better. I don't really see Stanford blowing this team out. Stanford doesn't blow teams out. That's just not how they tend to operate. But do I see like a field goal, 4 points, 5? UCLA is this bad. So I feel pretty good.
Yeah, as we're talking about turning corners, Stanford might have turned one, but I'll let you stick to that game and I'll avoid it. How much you got on it?
15. It's just, I'm not saying it's my lock, but I feel I am probably leaning more towards a $20 bet than a $10 bet if you had to ask.
Okay. I got 2 on the Friday night games. I don't know what you're looking at here with the Friday night games. We got 4 games on Friday night. Marshall at Florida Atlantic, Pitt at Syracuse, Ohio State at Northwestern, UNLV at Fresno. I like the Pitt game and the Ohio State game. Do you have anything on either of those?
I figured you would be on the Pitt Syracuse game. I am not on that. I'm curious what your play is. Are you taking Pitt?
-3.5.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was my guess.
Absolutely. I think that Pitt, they started off the season, they got pretty much destroyed by UVA. I mean, 30-14, bad game. Then they beat Ohio 20-10, and people are sitting there going, wait, is this team bad? I mean, they only beat Delaware 17-14 after the big UCF win. This is a team that kind of plays up and down a little bit. Ohio's not a bad football team. Delaware obviously is, but they just went on the road and beat Duke 33-30. Syracuse, man, they just have not turned it around. I mean, after watching them get their doors blown off against Maryland 63-20, they get blown away by Clemson 41-6. They beat Western Michigan 52-33 and Holy Cross 41-3. They finally get a game against NC State, a game they should have been able to win, and they lose 16-10. I think that Pitt is a better football team than Syracuse. I think Pitt's defensive line is going to get to Syracuse a lot. I mean, Syracuse gave up 8 sacks last week to NC State. I don't know if Pitt's defensive line is better than NC State's, but I think it's up there. I just don't see Syracuse scoring many points in this game, despite the fact that Pitt gives up a lot of points. Pitt also scores a lot. Pitt lost to Penn State 17-10. I think that this is a game that Pitt probably wins like 21-10, something like that. It's going to be lower scoring. Syracuse can have a really hard time. And I like Pitt to cover.
Why don't you hop on the under then?
Well, you know what the problem is with over-unders here is like, okay, so the over-under in this game is set at 52. Maybe. But if this turns into a weird game where Pitt just decides that they're going to give up 30 points like they do sometimes, I like the under in this game. I do. But because I don't like over-unders, I'm not going to bet it. But I will tell everybody the under in this game is the play. It's a good play.
Yeah, I mean, the way you're talking about it, the way these two teams play, especially with Pitt, how they've been recently, I definitely gave a look at this under. I almost feel better about that than I would taking Pitt, just because, like you said, they are so inconsistent. I don't know if I can trust them. How much are you putting on it?
I'm putting 15. Look, they blew a 23-point lead to Duke last week. So in all reality, they were winning that game. I forget what it was. I think it was like 30-7 or something like that. They blow that lead, or maybe it was 26-3. I forget exactly what it was, but their defense is good. Their defense held Duke, and Syracuse's offense is not as good as Duke's offense. Not that Duke's offense is anything great, but I just think that this Pitt team, you're right. I mean, the under is something to look at, but we don't look at many unders, Will. We're doing this on purpose. Although I will say that in the Ohio State game, I might have an over.
All right, well, let's move on to the Ohio State game. They're at Northwestern on a Friday night. I'm hearing a lot of chatter about this being a trap game for Ohio State, a scary looking game. Yeah, I don't buy any of this. Ohio State is favored by 4 touchdowns. That's full 28 points. And that is a huge number, but I have been on the Ohio State train all season long. It has paid off for me. I am on Ohio State minus 28. I've got 10 on it just because it is such a high number, and Northwestern does play slowly. They can slow teams down. But the teams that really give Ohio State a run for their money and have a chance to upset them or really disrupt them are the ones that play high tempo with an air raid, that get players out in space, and they just try to run and gun and kind of keep up with Ohio State. And we saw this last year against Maryland when Ohio State they didn't lose to Maryland, but I think that might have gone to overtime. It was an almost win by Maryland, and then they did lose to Purdue last season, and it wasn't even close. Purdue was running all over the field, and the games where they're playing against the more classic Big Ten style of like slow running the ball, just beat you up on the line of scrimmage. Ohio State usually finds a way to hang in there on defense and then just run up the score on offense when they get the ball back. And so Northwestern is kind of the opposite team that would give Ohio State problems. And I know they have a solid defense and they really stuck Wisconsin with kind of a tough game there. But I do have more confidence in Ohio State's offense than Wisconsin offense. So I do see a chance also of Northwestern not scoring any points, and that would be great for this cover. So I don't know. Again, 10 only because it's 28 points, but I still feel pretty good.
Yeah, I have 10 on this as well. I don't understand why it's so low. I know Northwestern's coming off a bye. Ohio State's going to be going to play Wisconsin next week, so it could be a possible look-ahead situation. But Northwestern is just not that good of a football team. And like you said, this is not the type of team that gives Ohio State trouble. Ohio State's closest game this year is 24 points. That was last week against Michigan State and week 1 against Florida Atlantic. Throw out the Florida Atlantic game because the defense just stopped playing in the entire second half of that game. They just beat Michigan State by 24. I think they come out. I think they roll Northwestern. Look, they might stop playing late in the game if they can get up by enough. The goal in this game is to get to 35-0 so you can bench your starters so you can rest them for Wisconsin. That's the goal in this game. So I don't see Ohio State ever letting up on Northwestern, and I don't see Northwestern being able to stop them. Northwestern's defense, yeah, they looked okay against Wisconsin. I know that. They gave up 31 to Michigan State, though. And I think that Wisconsin game was a bit of a fluke. I really do. Wisconsin should have put up more points in that game than they did. We watched pretty much Wisconsin that whole game.
Had so many missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Because I had the over in that game too, because I thought Wisconsin had a chance to get the over on their own. And it was pretty late in the game, but I was like, man, the over still has a chance of hitting just because they were driving down the field and had chances to score. I mean, both teams really did. So, I don't look at that and say, wow, Northwestern's defense is really scary. It's good. It's solid, but is it solid enough to stop Ohio State, who might have the number 1 offense in all of college football? I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I agree. And I also have the over here at 49.5. The half point scares me, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I'm only putting 10 on it. Buy the half a point if it is at 49.5 just to get it to 49, or you get it to 48.5, whatever you're more comfortable with. But I just think that Ohio State can do this on their own. I really do think that at halftime, we're looking at 35-0. I really do. I think that they're just going to put up as many points as they can in the first half so they don't have to play the second half. Second half, maybe Northwestern scores a touchdown here and there. I think Ohio State ends this game around 50 on their own. I really do. I don't see Northwestern being able to stop them. Like you said, Ohio State could have the best offense in football, but I'm only putting 10 on it because 49.5. If it was 49, I'd probably go 15. 49.5, and I think Ohio State's going to be resting a lot of starters in this whole entire second half.
Mm-hmm. Another concern is just Northwestern having maybe a couple long drives that are like 7-8 minutes long. That just burns clock. And I could see them doing that and then putting up kind of field goals. I don't really see them getting into the end zone all that often. So, I mean, at least I was looking at the spread. That's my only kind of concern. Is Ohio State going to have enough time in the second half to cover 28 points if Northwestern plays kind of a ball hogging style where they know they're going to lose, but they kind of want to limit the damage.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just don't think they're going to be able to put drives together. They don't have the type of offense that can put a drive together this year. They really don't. Not against good defenses. They can against bad defenses, but they
Ohio
can't.
State's defense is pretty good. It's much improved. So
the most points they've given up this year is 21 to FAU week 1. Since then, they've only given up 10 twice, 5 once, 7 once, and 0 another time. And that 21 points in week 1. I mean, that's week 1. Week 1 is a tricky week. After that, that defense is just locked down. Having given up more than 2 touchdowns in a game in college football, that's crazy. I don't care who you're playing against.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I have Ohio State as my number 3 team in the country right now. So
yeah, I could buy that. Let's go to Saturday. There's a lot of 12 o'clock games. I guess not too many, but there's enough across all the networks here. That's when Miami's playing. So we'll talk about that one in a sec. One of the games though, Will, that jumps out to me off the bat here is Florida going to South Carolina. And this one jumps out to me for a couple reasons, but the main one is South Carolina coming off that huge emotional win over Georgia. That doesn't mean South Carolina is that good. South Carolina is going to have, I think they're going to have a huge letdown game this week. This is just one of those situations. You had your big win. You did it. You pulled it off. You go home. Maybe you come out hot like early on. Florida just lost, finally took their first loss of the season to LSU, screwed us with the cover, had the ball first and goal from the 2-yard line with like 30 seconds left and never got in the end zone. But I think it's only 6 points for Florida. And I think Florida is going to win this game by a couple touchdowns. I don't think South Carolina's South Carolina just had this great win, but this is just like the emotions are so high. How long can you ride that? We see that all the time in sports. Florida's coming off a tough loss for a game that really was maybe their season, So I think that Florida comes out getting this less than a touchdown, I think is a steal. I have 20 on it, Will. Tell me why I'm insane for doing this.
I wish I could. I'm also on this, and I have 20 on it. It feels like a sucker bet. This number is so low, and it is perplexing, especially like South Carolina just beat Georgia this last week. It's not like they can sneak up on Florida here. Florida knows what happened. It's like they've probably seen the highlights. They've seen the game. Georgia is one of Florida's biggest rivals. And if Florida can come out and blow South Carolina out, that gives a huge statement to Georgia saying, hey, look what we can do against a team that you just lost to. So I'm with you. I see Florida coming out, especially after its first loss, to just be kind of fired up and get back to its winning ways. I'm not overthinking this one. South Carolina, what else have they done? Like if they don't beat Georgia last week, what is the spread? I think that's what we need to ask ourselves. And I don't think
I bet it's almost 14. I'd bet it's almost 2 touchdowns.
I would say it's probably 11, 12, something in there. So.
This is one, I think all the public money is going to go on Florida, but there's also going to be a lot of bets on South Carolina because there's nothing more public than what South Carolina did last week. It's the biggest upset of the season so far, not counting Bowling Green beating Toledo. It's the biggest upset of the season so far in terms of actual national ranking and meaning. And so this happens, and I just think like everybody saw it. So Vegas is assuming people are going to go and say, oh, South Carolina is this good. But there's a reason South Carolina is 3-3 with losses to UNC and Missouri. A 20-point loss to Missouri, nonetheless. But I'm sure that, everybody in SEC land is saying, well, that's a good home loss for Georgia. It's okay. We get it. It's a good loss. But I just think that this is a sucker bet. I totally agree with you. I think if you're taking South Carolina +6 or money line this week, you're basing it on 1 week of football. And this would almost be like taking Syracuse in any game after they beat Clemson that one year. And they didn't win another game the rest of the season because that was their Super Bowl. And yeah, you get to play a lot of Super Bowls in the SEC, but South Carolina just won a game they had no business winning. And now they can just kind of be like, well, what else do you want? We're the team that knocked off Georgia and ruined their chances of playing for a national title. So I think that this is just Florida all the way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like South Carolina, what more do they need to prove? Like they've exceeded their expectations. I mean, obviously they want to win as many games as possible. But even more so, it's just that they can't sneak up on Florida. Florida is going to be looking for this. Like, what did they do so well against Georgia? They're going to study the tape. They're going to figure out what went wrong. and correct it. And also, I think probably Florida is just a better team than Georgia to begin with. I know Georgia was ranked third, but Florida's probably been a better team than Georgia this whole season. We just didn't know it. I actually thought Florida looked really, really good against LSU. I mean, they were in that game. They had the lead at halftime, I'm pretty sure. I think they were up like 21-14 or 28-20. I mean, they were up a touchdown at one point into the second half. It's not like, I know they didn't cover the 13 points, but it's not like LSU ran them off the field. So I think I have LSU as the number one team in the country. I think Florida is probably, somewhere in that top 5, top 8 range. I really think they have looked that good the past 2 weeks. So this is very easy. I have $20.
Yeah, in the rankings, Florida's number 9 still. So Florida's still getting respected despite the fact that they lost this game to LSU. They didn't really take much of a drop.
Who's ranked higher, Georgia or Florida?
Florida is ranked above Georgia right now by a spot. 9 in the coaches and the AP poll. Georgia is 10 in both polls. We finally have seen this take shape. I mean, if you look at the AP and the coaches, Alabama's 1 in both. Clemson and LSU are flip-flopped. Ohio State is 4 in both. Oklahoma 5 in both. Wisconsin 6 in both. Penn State 7 in both. Notre Dame 8 in both. Florida 9 in both. Georgia 10 in both. Auburn 11 in both. Oregon 12 in both. Like, it's taking shape now. Like, there's really no arguments to be made for a lot of what we're seeing.
I guess for me, it's like LSU jumps to number 2 is a bit baffling. Like, why don't they just jump them to number 1? Like,
because nobody will ever dethrone Alabama.
How do you not have them above Alabama? You know what I mean? Like, LSU just beat Florida. What is Alabama's best win? Texas A&M? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well, that's what's always baffling to me is, Alabama, they'll never drop. And as Clemson, they haven't looked great this season, but there's no problem in dropping Clemson down below LSU. But God forbid we drop Alabama below LSU. Like, it just doesn't happen. And I just think that's so funny. I mean, I really do. Because Alabama, they've looked impressive. They've played nobody. And I don't want to hear this, every game in the SEC. I don't care. They've played nobody. Like, their schedule is going to start to get a lot tougher. But
I think Texas A&M is a pretty solid team. I just think if LSU is behind both Clemson and Alabama, LSU beats Florida and they jump just ahead of Clemson when that win is better than any win Clemson has and any win Alabama has. I mean, like, Clemson has beaten that same Texas A&M team that Alabama has beaten. They have the same best win.
I just said Alabama's schedule gets harder, and it really doesn't, but they do play LSU on November 9th.
Well, yeah, they have LSU, they have Auburn,
and that's it.
And then they'll get, Georgia or Florida coming out of the East. So,
well, not if LSU beats them, then they won't get anybody coming out of the East because LSU will have knocked them off.
That's true. That's very true. I think LSU does win that game. But let's keep it moving.
Let's keep it moving.
We feel good about that game.
Yeah. Do you have any other 9 o'clock games, or should I do the Canes?
I must have. We'll keep it in the
9 o'clock games because we're on the Pacific.
Yeah, I'll keep it on the SEC here briefly. I really like Auburn minus 18.5 at Arkansas. I've got 15 on it. I've liked Auburn all season. And, they tripped up against Florida, which it really doesn't bother me that much. Like I said, I think Florida's a really strong team. And sort of how Auburn loses to Florida, Florida then loses to LSU. And I don't really fault Florida for losing. I don't really fault Auburn losing for that much because Florida's a really strong team. So, and it's just kind of funny. Auburn loses that one game, and I feel like they've kind of been forgotten about. Other than the Florida game, the 5-0 against the spread. This week, they're coming off of a bye after a loss, and they're getting Arkansas. I just think it's a great spot for them to, come back out and just blow this team out of the water. That Auburn-Mississippi State game was a joke. I had Auburn. I forget. I think they were favored by like 12, and they were up 49-0 at one point. So I've seen what this Auburn team can do, and 18.5 just seems like, that's I guess about right, but it could be a blowout. So I got 15 on it.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but I ended up deciding not to. That's the way I would lean on it. Arkansas has not been impressive at all.
I mean,
like
Arkansas
you said,
had one good showing against Texas A&M, and that's kind of it. That's the only kind of positive we've seen from their season. They lost to Kentucky last week. There's just nothing telling me that they're going to be able to hang in with Auburn. And 18.5 points, I consider hanging in there, and I just don't see that.
I went on my Texas A&M rant last week. I'm very happy they lost, and now I don't have to go on a Texas A&M rant again. I did that last week. Well, started off the podcast with it. Let's go to this Miami game. Before we get into it, as always, want to take a second to thank our sponsor. You know them well, Brett and everyone at Caneswear. They've got the best selection of Miami Hurricanes gear by far. Hats, jerseys, shirts you can't find anywhere else. Football, baseball, basketball, much more. You name it, they got it. So head over to caneswear.com or visit the storefront in Davie off University Drive in the Arrowhead Shopping Center. We actually pulled off the win, and I said this off the top. I bet on the money line of Virginia, and of course the Canes win because screw me, that's just how they feel. I'm pretty sure they knew about it. They must have talked about it in the pregame locker room. Phil bet against us. We can finally go out there and win a game. They looked pretty bad for most of the game, but they won. The defense made big plays. They need to make big plays. They held Virginia out of the end zone. I am not convinced at all that the offense is that good. I mean, I know N'Kosi Perry made some throws that were really pretty, but N'Kosi Perry still threw below 500. It was close to below 500 if it wasn't quite below 500. We had one really good drive to start the game. Didn't really do much after that. Started to play better. I'm not convinced in this game at all. I don't know if I just completely cut out or what just happened there, but I'm just I look at. You think I might have? When did I start?
I don't know. I would just keep going. You seem so passionate.
I'm so passionate, and then I lost it. Well, I can maybe edit that out. I'll tell Stefan. Maybe Stefan will do it. But yeah, I just think that this is not. We're still not that good. But we won a game against a team that we probably shouldn't have beat. I could not believe that we were favored in that game. We still won. So, hey, good for us. We are now going to play Georgia Tech, who might possibly have the worst offense in college football, despite the fact that they've put up 23 and 22 points in the last 2 weeks. The over-under is set at 47.5. That's the number that jumps out to me the most. I've got 15 on that. I don't think our offense is good. I don't think Georgia Tech's offense is good. I worry that Georgia Tech's defense is so bad we end up putting up 42 ourselves. But what has led me to believe that from our offense all season that could possibly happen? Miami is an 18-point favorite. I'm not going to go against them. I'm only going to put 10 on it, though, because they probably know that I'm betting on them. And right now they're in the locker room talking about me and saying, screw this Phil guy. Let's screw him over one more time because we're Miami football. Will, what do you think?
So Miami's going to hit the over is what you're saying.
They're going to hit the over and they're going to win by 3.
Well, I am looking to take them minus 18.5. And this is more a fade Georgia Tech play than it is a pro Miami play. I said last week that I wanted to lump Georgia Tech in with Rutgers and Bowling Green as those, really bottom tier teams of college football. And we faded Georgia Tech last week against Duke, and it worked. It worked out for us. They're now 0-5-1 against the spread this season. And when I look to the Miami side, I agree with you. We did not look good. Even though we beat a ranked opponent, we did not look that good doing it. I will say, though, our offense moved the ball. It was just we couldn't get the ball in the end zone. That's an issue with so many football teams. It's been an issue for Miami for the past 3 or 4 years. It's an issue with the Lions. I don't know if you caught that game last night, Phil, as a Lions fan, but a lot of that kind of separates the good and great football teams. You can be a good offense and move the ball and kick field goals, or you can get the ball in the darn end zone. And I think that's something Miami really needs to focus on. And I think Georgia Tech is an amazing opportunity to focus on just that. You're playing at home. You're playing a really bad defense who gives up a lot of points, and get your end zone right. Run your end zone plays. And I don't know, 18.5 is a lot, but it seems like a good spot to me. I only got 10 on it because I don't really enjoy betting Miami games. It's too stressful to watch as is. I don't need to add more stress. And this isn't, I think, an amazing bet because the number is high. But hey, Georgia Tech is 0-5-1 against the spread. Keep it rolling.
Yeah, I stopped listening to you after you took the dig at the Lions because screw you, man. For anybody who is wondering, Will did not watch a single play of that football game.
I did. I literally watched
Will was out on some anniversary dinner. So get out of here, Will. We don't have time for your nonsense. I don't need your trolling. That's not part of my life. Okay.
Those calls were terrible, Phil. I'm so sorry for you.
It is it was the worst officiated game I think I've ever seen, and I've watched the Lions every week almost my entire life. But we don't need to talk about that because the entire NFL is talking about it, or not the entire NFL, but when people like Barry Sanders and Tony Dungy are ripping on it, the NFL officiating needs to change. It's a freaking joke. At least college, you expect it to be bad. The NFL needs to be better. These are supposed to be the best of the best. They're a joke. Thanks for bringing this up, Will. But I agree with you. We need to put the ball in the end zone.
College football refs have not been that bad this year.
Well, not like comparative because we've been watching the NFL.
There's some targeting stuff that annoys me, but that's more about the rules than it is the refs. So I give college football a lot of credit in their officiating so far.
You're not allowed to go for an interception in pro football because if Geronimo Allison's going to the ground and hits your helmet and he gets knocked unconscious, that's suddenly your fault because you're going for the interception. It's complete bogus. The NFL is a joke at JOK, really, but somehow I'm winning money on it. So stick it to the man, right? If you're going to win. But we're talking college football, Will. Do you think that there's any way Georgia Tech puts up more than 10 points against our defense in this game? Do they score more than Virginia scored last week?
There's absolutely a way. Absolutely. Just because Georgia Tech, they're just that tricky team that's going to get us in our defense. It's like I said, coming into the Virginia Tech game, I was like, the only thing I'm confident in is Miami's defense. So I'm taking the under. And
down 28-0 in the first half.
It puts up 20-0. And if I had told you that 28-0 in the first half on this Miami defense, you wouldn't believe it. If we are making bad throws on offense and then interceptions lead to short fields, Georgia Tech can score. So I like the cover more so that Miami is going to get things right. And I am with you that they shouldn't score that many points. But you were asking me if I can see it as a possibility. I absolutely can see it happening. I don't think it's likely.
Yeah, I worry that exactly what you said, short fields. N'Kosi Perry throws an interception here or there. The guy just throws the ball as hard as he possibly can every single time. And I know there's a lot of people who are defending N'Kosi saying we don't win that game if we have Jaron Williams, blah, 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 blah. N'Kosi missed so many throws too. I don't want to hear that it's just his receivers dropping. There was that one deep ball that was nice and it went through the receiver's hands, but there were also 2 or 3 other deep balls that were overthrown by a good 5 to 10 yards. So I don't want to hear that N'Kosi is some savior here. But I do think that through this stretch of our schedule, there's no reason to think that N'Kosi Perry can't get us through it with a couple wins here and there. And there's no reason we should lose to Georgia Tech. We lose to Georgia Tech, I might never, ever watch a Miami Hurricanes football game again because this is the worst Georgia Tech team in the history of Georgia Tech football. They are atrocious. If we lose to Georgia Tech, we're worse than the Citadel. I don't think we will, though. I think we looked much better against Virginia, despite the fact that it still wasn't a very clean football game. But we found a way to win. We scored a touchdown at the end when we needed to. And as crazy as it sounds, we're still not out of the Coastal.
That's what I mean. We're not out of the Coastal yet. We just beat a ranked team in Virginia who had a pretty good season up to this point. Don't you just feel like this team just needs a blowout win? Just you're at home.
That's what I think is going to happen here.
35-0. They're come on, Miami, get it together. You need to blow this team out here.
I agree.
So let's keep it in the ACC. I have got. Oh yeah, I like this one. Louisville going to Clemson. Thoughts on this game, Phil?
I have none. I just assume Clemson's going to kill them.
Louisville is at home.
Yeah, Louisville's at home. My take you tell me your take.
I got Louisville plus 24. I think this is a scary spot for Clemson. There's only one thing that's really scaring me is that Clemson dropped from 2 to 3, but that's not that big of a deal. It would have been bigger if they dropped from 1 to 2. Or
if it was in the college football playoff ranking that they dropped from 2 to 3. We all know the AP poll doesn't mean shit. So no offense.
Right. But even in the AP poll, if they had just dropped from 1 to 2, I'm probably not taking this because we saw what they did to Florida State.
I also think that it's funny that they drop in the AP poll this week. And I get LSU had the big win over Florida, but I think it's funny that they dropped this week after blowing out Florida State and they didn't drop the week before to number 3 after beating UNC by 1, or did they drop from 1 to 2 that week and then 2 to 3 this week?
It was this week that they went from 2 to 3.
Yeah, I know this was the week they went from 2 to 3, which I think is crazy because they just won by 31 and destroyed Florida State the entire game.
Yeah, they're up 42-0 or something.
Yeah. So that's what's funny to me.
I'm not sure when they dropped out of the number 1 spot. It might have, I think it was after that UNC
game.
Anyway, I just think Louisville is in like a pretty good spot here. I watched the Louisville Wake Forest game this past weekend. It was one of the most fun games to watch. And Louisville was up at 2 separate points in the game. They're up 21 points, and then they let Wake Forest claw back in. There were a ton of turnovers and like good punt returns and kick. It was a wacky game. But I think Louisville, they have so much speed. Watching, they're so fast. They had awesome punt returns and kick returns. They had awesome plays getting these really amazing athletes into space. And the thing that I noticed was that they got the ball out so quickly. Their starting quarterback, Cunningham, got hurt, and this other guy came in who actually did really well. I'm forgetting his name now. He was more of a pocket passer, but he had some big runs also. But the quarterbacks got the ball out quickly. They don't need to hold on to the ball that long to let their plays develop. And Clemson, what they're so good at is that defensive front, just putting pressure on quarterbacks. I don't think that's going to hurt Louisville as much as it would hurt an average team in the ACC. Louisville is at home. I think Louisville can score. Like I said, they just get their guys into the open field. If anything here, also look at the over. I'm not sure what it's set at, but Louisville's defense is also very capable of giving up points. So it worries me a little bit with the 24 that Clemson could just put up like a crazy number. But I don't know. I'm feeling like it's just going to be one of these wacky games that Louisville might win. No, I'm joking. They're not going to win. Louisville's not
going to happen.
But if they lose by 17 points, that won't surprise me at all. So I got Louisville plus 24. Got 15 on it.
Okay. I could buy it. I don't really have a take on it, but I can see what you're saying.
This is part gut, but it's also part head. It's like I see how this Louisville team can score against this Clemson defense. I really do.
Okay. I hear you. The next game I have is actually, it looks like my next one is Indiana. Where is this game? There it is. It's at 12:30. Indiana, or I guess 3:30. Indiana at Maryland. And I've been very vocal. Indiana was going to go under this year on their win total, but man, has everything lined up for them to not go under on their win total. Josh Jackson is not going to play again. Is he out for the season? I need to look at that. But Josh Jackson is not going to play again. And wow, did Maryland look terrible against Purdue last week. Indiana's probably better than Purdue, which is a shame. Indiana's favored by 5.5. I mean, remember when Maryland's offense was explosive? Not anymore. I got 15 on Indiana minus 5.5. It's not really a game we need to talk about all that much, though, unless you have an opposing view.
I just like how you don't take Indiana when they're playing Rutgers, but now that they're playing Maryland, you're
well, dude, Maryland is now on Rutgers level without Josh Jackson.
I actually don't think they are. I don't know. Purdue got up for that game. This is a risky play here, Phil. I'm warning you.
I hope I'm wrong. I'm wrong because I got real money out there on the Indiana game. I'd much rather Indiana under. I'd much rather Indiana lose. But I mean, Purdue got up for a game, but I mean, they're also a team that's just been getting blown away all year.
Yeah, I think Maryland's one of those really inconsistent teams. They, stomp Syracuse and then they go on to lose to Temple, get blown up by Penn State. I don't know. Maryland's a tricky one. In Indiana, I don't know if it's a team I really want to be trusting. I don't know. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong. I've sent you my warnings before, and usually when I send you a warning, I don't take the other side of the bet, but it ends up winning, and I scratch my head like, damn, I knew I was right. I was like with the Stanford Washington game. I was like, I don't think so, but.
How do you feel, Will, about the Oregon versus Washington game?
That's such a tricky one. We don't want to get there already, do we? I mean,
no, it's at the same time as that Indiana game. And since you just mentioned it.
Well, sure. I mean, I don't have a play on it just because.
Oregon minus 2.5. 15.
I think that's how I would lean. So that's where you're going with it. It's just
15 on it.
Washington. I've seen this happen too many times where I've been saying a while on this podcast. So I think Oregon is the best team in the Pac-12, and we're going to look up and they're going to be 7-1, 8-1 with their only loss coming to Auburn, which is a game they should have won. Oregon really should have won that game. They were in control the whole time. But man, if this isn't the perfect time for some Pac-12 cannibalism where Washington comes in and just derails Oregon's season. It's
See,
just
I think they do it
spot.
next week. I think they do it next week because they play Utah next week. And I think or in 2 weeks, they actually play Utah. I think they're going to lose to Oregon. They're going to get the bye, and then they're going to beat Utah because they're playing them at home. I think that's where we're going to get the Pac-12 cannibalizing each other. But I think Oregon's too good to be cannibalized by Washington here.
All right. I mean, that's the way it should happen. That's the way you see it and go, that makes sense. But, you also thought Washington would beat Stanford by 16.
Yeah, but think about what Oregon's defense is doing right now. Okay. And Washington's offense has been very good. Right? Like they score points. That's their thing. Oregon has not given up double digits since week 1 when they lost to Auburn. Every other game, and again, yeah, they've played Nevada, Montana, Stanford, Cal, Colorado. Not the best teams. But when you're not giving up 10 points in college football, you're doing something right no matter who you're playing against because it's freaky like that. And this Oregon team has just been shutting everybody down. And so, I like them to cover this game. I think Washington's going to have a super hard time scoring. 2.5, it's less than a field goal. I can't ask for more.
I thought about it. I can't say I'm not on that side. That seems like the right play. Let's move over to a terrible team that we haven't been fading on this podcast. And I think they deserve some love because it's what we do. We love to find the bad teams that are always going to be there to not cover whatever number they are underdogs by. But UConn, this is a team last week that was 34-point dogs. Tulane goes ahead and wins 49-7. So they cover that. And right now they're only 21.5-point dogs against Houston team. Now I know Houston doesn't have De'Aaron King, but even Houston without De'Aaron King is not that bad. They're not 12.5 points different from Tulane. So in that Houston Tulane game went to overtime, and I think that's when they did have De'Aaron King.
Yeah,
so it's not
they did have De'Aaron King. Yeah.
But since De'Aaron King's been out, they've gotten a pretty good win over North Texas and a solid, not great, but a solid showing in Cincinnati, who is proving to be one of the better teams in the AAC. So if Tulane can go win, I think they're at 49-0 at one point. If they can go ahead and win 49-7, why can't Houston do that? And they don't even need to do that much because we're getting 12.5 more points off of that 34-point spread that Tulane had. So the only real difference is UConn is at home, whereas Tulane was at home for their game. But it's not a 12.5-point home field advantage they got over at Connecticut. So
I agree.
I have $20 on this one.
I have 15 on it.
Houston's very capable of running up the score when they're better than their opponent. So I love this game.
Yeah, I have 15 on it. I agree. We have not been giving UConn enough credit all season, and they deserve it because they're really bad at football. So yeah, I like that one. Interesting one, I think, Will, and maybe you don't agree with me. Do you have anything on this Baylor at Oklahoma State game, or are you going to tell me I'm crazy on this one too?
That's one I thought about. It's like Baylor should not. Baylor's the underdog, right?
Yeah, they're dogs, road dogs,
and they shouldn't be because they're undefeated. They're ranked, but it's similar with the Miami Virginia one. I even tweeted out as the Miami line kept going up after we recorded. I was baffled. I tweeted like something is just fishy. Someone knows, like, why is Miami becoming more of a favorite in this game? And then we saw kind of how it goes. Are you going to take Baylor +3 just because it seems like the obvious pick?
No, I'm going to take Baylor money line. I'm not even going to take them +3.5. Here's my thing. And I know that this is a trap. This is like a public trap.
Spot. Yeah.
It's a public trap. I got them at +140. So here's my reasoning for this. Baylor's not a team that anybody is looking at and saying, man, like, Baylor should be competing for a national title. They're undefeated. They're so good, blah, blah, blah. They've won some nail-biter games. They barely beat Texas Tech. They barely beat Iowa State. They almost lost to Rice somehow. But I just think that the key thing is they find a way to win every time. They've just been finding ways to win. That Texas Tech game, it even came out. There was an apology, I think, from one of the officials going back to how bad refs are about like just the wrong call in Texas. They apologized to Texas Tech. I forget exactly what the play was because I'll be honest, I didn't really watch much of the game. I watched a little bit, but Baylor keeps on finding a way to win. And I think Oklahoma State coming off their bye and Oklahoma State being kind of a little bit more public than Baylor is because they've been in the public's eye a lot longer than Baylor, just because Baylor since RG3 has been terrible. I mean, they were so bad the last couple of years. It's been a joke. So this year they're kind of overachieving. And this to me almost feels like when the NCAA tournament has one of those 12-5 matchups, but the 12 is Butler. And it doesn't matter who the 5 is because Butler is the 12, and all of a sudden you look and the point spread is even, despite the fact that maybe the 5 seed should be favored by 3 points or 5 points, whatever it is. And it's just the name is there. And this to me feels like it's Oklahoma State's name versus Baylor's name. And just because Baylor's been so bad recently, so I only have 10 on it, but I think that this is not the spot where Baylor trips up. I don't think that they should. I mean, having them ranked number 18, that's about right. But I do think that I think that honestly, they're going to go into that Oklahoma game undefeated and then get absolutely decimated by Oklahoma. But at least we'll get to say that it was a late season undefeated matchup. I really believe that. I just think the Big 12 is the bottom of the Big 12 is not as good as the top. So I just think Baylor wins this game.
I'm issuing another warning here. Oklahoma State is a team that loves to play at home. They have so much talent. What's their running back again? Hubert. So much, so good, so much fun to watch. I root for this team. I'm a little bit biased. I have no reason to root for this team. It's not like I know anyone who went there or I grew up like. There's just a fun team to watch, especially this season. I love the mullet. Give me the mullet all day. For me, this seems like the perfect place where Baylor will get its first loss. It just seems perfect. It's going to – for you, I think you should take the points. I really do.
I'm good.
Baylor plays close games, and they might lose a close game. This might be, 33-30, and you might wish you had those 3 to at least get you to a push or something like that.
When you're looking up at the mountain that I'm looking up at right now, you don't have time to worry about 30 finals.
You need the big winner. Okay,
and it's not even that big, but I just think Baylor's. I think Baylor's
all the dog money lines. Well, here's another one. Let's keep it in the Big 12. You're
looking at Texas Tech, huh?
Texas Tech, Iowa State. I think this, if you really want to go money line and catch a big money line, because Texas Tech is 7.5 point dogs at home. I love this. I love Texas Tech here. I got 15 on this. As you mentioned, both of these games had a very close run-in with Baylor. Both of these teams had a chance to beat Baylor. Texas Tech went to overtime with them last week. So for them to have 7.5 points between them I'm pretty sure Baylor, that's the only common opponent they've played. So that's our only bearing on these two teams without getting too far down the transitive road. So I see Texas Tech also in that Oklahoma State game easily handling them. I was on Oklahoma State minus 10 or 11, and man, that bet was over quickly for me. I was bummed. I continue to hold on hope. I continue to watch, but Texas Tech continued to score points. And I mean, Iowa State, have they done anything that impressive this season? Like I remember there was hype coming into the season for Iowa State to be one of the teams that could like a sleeper in the Big 12. But for who they've played, I mean, I don't know.
I got 10 on this money line as well, dude. No joke. I'm ready to go. I'm ready. This is my big week. Yeah. Do you have the money line or the spread?
No, I'm taking the spread. I'm taking the points. I'm a little bit more comfortable than you are right now. So I can afford to take 7.5. And yeah,
how much do you have on that?
15. I got 15 on it. And Texas Tech, they are 3-3 this season with their 3 losses all coming on the road, 3 wins coming at home. And I know 2 of their wins were Montana State and UTEP, but the home win against Oklahoma State was very convincing. And when they come out sluggish, it was on the road. Their losses have been exclusively on the road. So I like them to stay within that 7.5. I think Iowa State can easily win. They could win by a field goal. I just don't know why the spread's so big.
Yeah, I don't get why it's so big, but like I said, I'm desperate. I have not taken money lines like all season long, so I got 2 of them this week. It's this one and it's Baylor. So I got this at plus 225, dude. I think that's ridiculous. That's great value for this game because it's a home game for Tech, and Iowa State has not done anything to prove that they are anything. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and if you look at the only common opponent, they should be on the same tier.
Agreed. I totally agree. What's the next game you have? I have 4 bets left.
Ooh, I got a lot.
Yeah, we might want to roll because we're already at 51 minutes.
All right, let's roll, man. Let's just hit this quickly. Bowling Green did us dirty last week, but we're back. I mean, now they're only 11.5 point dogs to a team that Miami only beat by 5. Of course, that's Central Michigan. I've got 20 on this. You gotta. This is where you don't teeter. You got to keep your faith and just roll with the punches. If Bowling Green finds a way to cover here or even wins this game, then I will be off Bowling Green. Sort of how I've kind of put UCF to bed a little bit. Mm-hmm. But until I see another, I mean, lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot. So I see Central Michigan easily. I mean, this is like with you talking about South Carolina winning their Super Bowl. What else do they have to play for? Bowling Green, they just beat an in-state rival. So,
yep, I completely agree with what you're saying. I am also going to stay away from it.
All righty,
forget Bowling Green. No, you're fine. You take it.
This is a list. Like Bowling Green will lose by more than 11.5 points.
All right,
like this is such an easy bet. So my locks so far are UConn losing by more than 21.5, Bowling Green losing by more than 11.5. I also have Florida -6. Those are my $20 bets.
Okay. Yeah, I think Florida is my only $20 bet right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got, this is one I really want to play it, but I don't think I will just because it is an over-under. So I just want to see how I fare on over-unders moving forward without actually putting money down on them. But this is the Cal Oregon State under 51.5. This number is very high. I mean, this is juicy. It's tough to stay off this one. But we have Cal, one of the best defensive, if not the best defense in the Pac-12, and they're at home against Oregon State. It's one of the worst teams in the Pac-12. Shout out UCLA there. They might not be the worst team. Oregon State just put up 7 points only against Utah last week, and their offense just running into Cal, it's just not a good combination. I see them scoring 10 points at the most, and then Cal, most points they've scored all season, 28 points against Ole Miss. They have not broken the 30s yet. Cal's offense is very mediocre, and once they have a lead, they like to stay on it. So 51.5, this seems like a really, really nice underplay. I'm not going to bet it, though. I just wanted to toss it out there.
You're such a little baby. Oh, if you had any spine, you would take this bet.
I also don't have enough money left. Like I only have $215, and I like a lot of picks this week. So I want to.
I might be taking out a loan again. I don't know.
Yeah,
the bank. I owe the bank.
51.5 is high for those teams. You know what? Give me 10 on it.
Okay,
give me 10.
Cal.
This is. I'm just gonna lose, but
under 51.5. 10. All right. I have a game I want to talk about real quick, or maybe not real quick. Maybe we should talk about it more. It's Pac-12. It's Arizona State versus Utah. Both teams 5-1. Arizona State coming off a win over Washington State. Utah coming over an absolute demolition of Oregon State. I mean, that was a joke. What was it? Arizona State lost to Colorado. Definitely a worse loss than what Utah has, losing to USC. However, both of these teams have scored a little bit more than maybe people have realized this year, but they've also both played very close games almost every time. Other than Utah destroying Oregon State, they destroyed Washington State. I mean, Utah hasn't really played too many close games. They played a close game against USC. That's really it. Arizona State seems to play everybody pretty close. I mean, they even only beat Sacramento State early in the year, 19-7. Their last 4 games have all been decided by 7 or less points. I like them to cover this 13.5. I think that Utah is going to win the football game. I wish I could have gotten this at 14, but I just think that them covering it, and I'm actually putting 15 on it. Well, I know you probably just saw where I had 20 written in, but I'm looking at how much money I have, and I actually only have 15 on it. But I like them to cover 13.5. So what do you have a take on this? Or are you just going to tell me Pac-12, man?
That's a great place. No, I mean, it is a tough one to pick because it is the Pac-12, and this is when you think about it. When I think about these teams, like Utah should be able to win this game by more than 2 touchdowns, but because of its nature, that both these teams are first and second place in the Pac-12 South, like this decides. This is a huge game for both of these teams when you're looking at the conference implications. So for that reason, I like your kind of lean here to say it's going to be close. Not really basing it on, Arizona State being all that good. It's just going to be one of those games that stays close. And I think that is a good read.
Okay. I appreciate that. That makes me feel good.
I'm not issuing a warning on this one.
I like that. I have one $20 bet left and one $10 bet. I actually just scratched my Boise State bet. What are you looking at, though?
Oh, man. Well, we'll get there. I assume, maybe I shouldn't assume, but LSU minus 18 at Mississippi State. I've got $20 on this one. This is a lock for me. LSU is my number one team in the country right now. I go LSU, then I go Oklahoma, then Ohio State, then Bama, then Clemson. But I got LSU over everybody. And 18 points. I mean, I saw, like I've already mentioned, I saw what Auburn was able to do to Mississippi State, and LSU has a much, much better offense than Auburn. We saw how Auburn, they're pretty easy to figure out on defense. You have to just make Bo Nix actually throw the ball and, clog up their running game. And Mississippi State really had no business being in that game. I don't see it being any different here. They are at home, but that Auburn game was also at home. So 18, it's just LSU, they played a close game against Florida. I get that it's kind of a spot to trip up, but Mississippi State lost to Tennessee last week. They put up 10 points against Tennessee. So for LSU and Mississippi State to be within 3 touchdowns just seems insane to me. I don't know what I'm missing. Can you tell me what I'm missing here?
I don't know what you're missing. I don't have anything on this game. I don't know what you're missing, but I just LSU just played the biggest game of their season so far. So I'm just going to step away from it for a second. I'm going to let them kind of bask. And 18 points is a lot, man. It's one of those games they should win by more, but you get a backdoor cover here when you're up by 24 in a game and all of a sudden they win by 17, but still dominate the whole time. I don't know, man.
I see them being up 28-0 in the first quarter. I see it being that bad because this LSU team, even when they were playing slowly against Utah State, they won 42-6. And that was them playing slowly compared to how their drives usually pan out, where they're just 2-minute drives, bombs down the field. Joe Burrow's on another level. And this Mississippi State team cannot hang. LSU saw what happened to Georgia last week. Everyone's got their eyes open for upsets this week. Everyone's going to be careful because they stop.
My big upset of the week, Kansas versus Texas. That was a joke. That Kansas is actually 21.5 points right now. They're underdogs. I love Texas here. I love Texas. Texas coming off the big loss to Oklahoma. Their only 2 losses are to LSU and Oklahoma, both by 7 points. Damn, Texas, they're playing these teams well. They just end up losing. But 21.5 against the Kansas team that, aside from their win over Boston College, has not really looked good this year. They almost beat West Virginia, but West Virginia is not very good. They put up 20 against Oklahoma. I think Texas is going to be able to handle Kansas's offense. I got 20 on them minus 21.5. I just think it's too big of a spread. Kansas they're not doing it for me. And I don't think this is going to be a letdown game. I think this is a Texas is pissed off game.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Texas is pissed off this week.
I thought about that. You definitely got to be careful. It was still the Red River showdown, rivalry, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Which, takes a lot of emotional investments. I will not issue a warning to you on this. I think that's the right play.
You can issue me warnings. I'll just tell you I don't care.
No, I want to be clear on when I issue warnings and when I'm not, and then I can track those, see how I do. And if I continue to be like 100% on my warnings, I will start taking the other side.
Good.
Let's move to our favorite team. It's the Rutgers podcast. Minnesota here, 28.5-point favorites. Give me that. I only got 10 on it because these numbers are just getting pretty darn high. I had Indiana minus 28 last week. I had 10 on that or 15 on that, I believe. And so if Indiana can do it, they covered the 28. Why can't Minnesota? Minnesota looks like they are a much better team than Indiana this season. Minnesota's undefeated. I bet against them last week.
Yeah, wait. Hold on, Will. Wait. I thought Minnesota was like completely overrated and wasn't going to cover against Nebraska.
They are overrated, probably. I mean, they're ranked, which means they're overrated. They are frauds, but man, Nebraska is that bad. Like, I didn't even think
that
Nebraska
was my favorite bet of the week.
Oh my God, it was over before it even started. I mean, the Minnesota won 34-0 against Nebraska, and now they're playing Rutgers, and the spread's only 28.5. So I've got to go with Minnesota here. They can do what they did last week against a worse opponent. So I love this. I did not watch a single play of that Nebraska-Minnesota game, and Will and I were not together when that game was being played, and I looked at the bottom ticker, and I just started laughing so hard because Will was like, this is the week to do it. This is where Nebraska's ready to go. Minnesota's terrible. And then of course, after I look at that, I look like, who does Minnesota play next week? That was a pretty like impressive showing, and it's Rutgers. And I'm just sitting there like alone in a bar laughing. Of course Will does this. Of course he does. It was just, I thought it was amazing. And I knew you were still going to take Minnesota, but it made me happy last week to see that score and then also see that the Rutgers Scarlet Knights were the next team on the schedule. I love it. I'm a huge fan. Golden Gophers are going to go to 7-0.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow. What else you got? The only game I have left is Penn State, Michigan. So if we want to save that one for last, maybe, and we can go through others.
Yeah, I got the Boise game after that, but two more before that. A couple of AAC underdogs that I really like. Got Temple plus 7.5 at MSU. I got 15 on this. I really like Temple here. SMU sitting at 6-0. They're ranked, feeling good. But when you look at their wins, they just haven't been that impressive. TCU is probably their best win, but TCU has been a shell of itself this season. So while I give them credit for being 6-0, it's not easy to do. Like, you got to tip your cap to SMU. You know, I don't know. I'm not seeing them as a team that's really as good as Temple. Temple's 5-1 and having a pretty nice season themselves. And I really see these two teams on a similar tier. So the 7.5 between them, it's very similar to my play with Texas Tech and Iowa State. I see those teams on a similar tier. So Temple, you look at them, they've got 2 Power 5 wins against Maryland and Georgia Tech. I don't know if you want to consider Georgia Tech a Power 5 team, but they got those 2 wins. And so it's more of a toss-up here. I'm not like playing the money line on Temple or anything. I don't think Temple is going to like blow them out. I just think 7.5 for 2 teams that are just playing they're both playing good football. They're both having good seasons. Just because SMU has the 0 in their loss column, they're getting a lot of extra love. And I think that's why this bet has a lot of value. So,
yeah, I mean, I could see it. I like Temple. I don't really believe in SMU, but I can't. I mean, like, I have less money than you. I really shouldn't even be betting with how much I have. I still have that loan from the bank of whatever we're doing here. So
lost Buffalo. It's their only loss, and Buffalo is having a down year, but they're not. I don't know. I mean, I just don't. And then SMU had they were down a bunch to Tulsa, I think, and had to put together a pretty crazy comeback to even beat Tulsa. So I'm not sold that SMU is like.
Yeah,
it's these undefeated teams. It's early in the season. They've beaten everyone who's been on their schedule. Kudos, but I mean, yeah, I could see SMU losing this game for sure.
Yeah, I could too. I really could. There were people who thought they were going to lose a couple weeks ago. So they just keep on. They're another one like Baylor. They just keep on somehow being undefeated.
Yeah, and they could still be undefeated here and win by a field goal or win by a touchdown. This is at 7.5 right now for Temple, which is just seems really high. Another one, Tulane plus 4.5 at Memphis. I get Memphis is at home here, but this might be a great money line play. I mean, both Tulane and Memphis are 5-1. Memphis's loss came last week to Temple, in which they got down early, had to kind of claw back. Another wacky game with a lot of turnover and stuff. It ended in a 2-point loss against Temple, and then Tulane's only loss against Auburn. And has racked up some wins against Houston, who had Derek King, and they beat Army, who's always just like a random kind of tough out on your schedule. So I just see what. And then, man, Tulane just let UConn have it last week.
Yeah.
I mean, so they were 34-point favorites last week, cover that easily. And now they're 4.5-point underdogs. You would think it would be against like a middle tier Power 5 team, but it's against Memphis, who hasn't really done all that much themselves. They beat Navy, which is good. They beat an Ole Miss, but Ole Miss, I mean, Cal beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss is not having a good season on its own. So I don't know, 4.5. This could be a money line spot, but I do like that it's over a field goal. So
how much you put?
Half. I only got 10 on.
Okay.
But I like Tulane.
Tulane's been good. They've been impressive this year. They really have, and they kind of came out of nowhere. I always think that's more fun when the teams come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
what?
Baylor.
I thought you said Bama. I was like, huh? Nice joke. Well, all right, man. Do you have any other game, or do you want to just talk Penn State, Michigan? Or I know you said you had Boise.
Let's talk Michigan, Penn State.
I have Penn State -9.
Something. You have Penn State -9. I mean, that seems right. It's scary though. Like Michigan, like there is so much pressure on Michigan to do well, and then they have to play Notre Dame. I don't know if it's next week they have to play Notre Dame, but I think one of their next.
It's literally next week.
It's next week.
Saturday.
State and then Notre Dame. If they go 0-2 in that stretch, that is going to be bad. I feel like Michigan has so much.
Jim Harbaugh's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. He might resign before they fire him, but I don't know what happens there. It worries me. Penn State likes to play close games. My lean here is the under at 45.5. If you watch, I don't know if you saw any of that Iowa Penn State game. I mean, Penn State got the lead, kind of figured out how to stop Iowa on defense, and just were like, we're up 10 points. You know what? This is fine. This is cool. They almost scored a touchdown near the end. I mean, I would feel pretty good about this under because Michigan's offense has been so pitiful, and Penn State seems to be comfortable playing these kind of close games, and they don't really need to get into the high 20s or 30s. So I lean under. I'm not going to pull the trigger on it because I've been so bad in over-unders. The thing's going to go over 70 points. It's going to be shootout now. But your position, I'm not going to issue a warning. This is just one of those games I want to stay away from because Michigan, it can be baffling, and this is going to be a frustrating game no matter which way it shakes out.
Yeah, I have 10 on it, -9. I just think this is a home game for Penn State. They've been kind of underrated all season long. This is their real chance to prove how good they are. That place is going to be going crazy. I think it's College Game Day, right? I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe it's College Game Day. Either way, I just think that in Happy Valley, it's just going to be insane. And this is their big chance to really put a final nail in what could be Harbaugh's career at Michigan. And I think they want to be the team that does that. I think that they come out pumped up. That place is going to be insanely loud. It's going to be so hard for Michigan to get anything going. Their offense, which struggles anyway, is going to struggle mightily with the sound, with just how good Penn State's defense has looked this year. 9 is always a lot in a rivalry game, but getting it under 10, Penn State is 10 points better than Michigan. I would take this bet 9 times out of 10. So I'm only putting $10 on it, or 10 units, whatever, but I like Penn State to cover this.
Yeah, that's gonna be a crazy game. I expect it to go under, so it probably goes over. I think your play is the sound one. It's the right one. From what we've seen, Penn State is a much better team than Michigan. Mm-hmm. Michigan, though, they They can sometimes surprise you. They really can. I would not be surprised if Michigan goes in there and finds a way to win this game. It would not surprise me, even though I think you're correct in taking Penn State -9. I'm staying away from it. One more game. I know you said you were off this, but it is Boise State locking up with I'm
BYU.
blanking on
BYU.
That's right. Oh, BYU, what you could have been. I really liked BYU at the beginning of the season. They were looking like a really fun team. They did me dirty when they lost to Toledo, but that's okay. Zach Wilson is out. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. I think he's definitely out for this game. Their starting running back is out for the season with an ACL. Their best linebacker is out for the season with an injury. So BYU just is banged up right now, and this is kind of a prime spot for Boise State to just kind of blow the doors off of BYU.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Broncos -6.5. Also, I think the UCF loss is really kind of
Inspired them. Yeah.
That G5 New Year's 6 bowl spot is up for grabs. Like, it's wide open right now. I know Cincinnati is still undefeated. SMU is undefeated. Minnesota is undefeated. Oh wait, no, they play in the Big Ten.
Oh,
Sorry.
Believe it or not. And now when they play teams like Rutgers, that might as well be Group of 5.
No, I know. I was taking a low blow there at Minnesota. They should be proud of being undefeated. But
how much you got on this Boise game?
I have 15. I'm not calling it a late night lock, not like last week. Even though the late night locks are 2-0 because that was the premiere. It was last week. I've only got 15 on it just because this BYU team is they're a scrappy bunch and they are at home. So maybe they pull off something here. I don't really see it happening, but just in case.
Yeah, I was on this. I had 15 on it as well, and then I decided to back out just because I got a little nervous on it.
Why?
I just BYU, man. I don't know. It's a home game. BYU wins games every year they should not win.
But they've already done that. Like they've beaten USC, they've beaten Tennessee. Like they've kind of done what they need to do. And like I said, they're so banged up. They are so injured.
Yeah. That puts you at 220, Will. I thought you had 215.
I only have 215, so I'm taking out a $5 loan.
Okay.
Got to lower my break-even point, but it's an investment right now.
I hear you, man. I hear you. I had to talk a little shit though. All right. I was on with you with Boise, and then I just bailed, man. I just bailed. BYU's weird. I bailed. I ran away. I'm hiding. It's okay. Do you want to run through these?
Yeah, man. This has been a long one. Lots of games.
I know, man. I'm dying. All right, I'll start with mine. I got Pitt -3.5, Ohio State -28, Ohio State Northwestern over 49.5, Florida -6, Miami -18, Miami UVA under 47.5, Indiana -5.5, whoops, Oregon -2.5, Houston -21.5, Baylor +140, Texas Tech +225, Arizona State +13.5, Texas -21.5, Penn State -9. That sounds like an undefeated week, Will. Can't possibly be as bad as it was 2 weeks ago, right?
It sounds pretty good. Did I hear you say Miami -18? I saw it at -18.5. Did that
No, it's
down?
18 now. It's dropped.
Ooh. So, I mean, if you're listening, hold out until that thing gets real low.
17.
Yeah. All right. I got Stanford -6 at home against UCLA. Ohio State -28 at Northwestern. Got Auburn -18.5 at Arkansas. Got Louisville at home +24 versus Clemson. Florida -6 out South Carolina. Miami -18 at home versus GT. Houston -21.5 at UConn. Texas Tech at home +7.5 versus Iowa State. Got Central Michigan -11.5 at Bowling Green. I am doing the Cal Oregon State under 51.5. That is going to hit for me. Got LSU -18 at Mississippi State. Got Minnesota -28.5 at Rutgers. Temple +7.5 at SMU. Tulane +4.5 at Memphis. Michigan. Wait, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not betting the under. Bad. Don't do that. And finally, I got Boise State -6.5. I mean, that's good. When you say it out loud, 6.5. You got to feel pretty good because even if they win by a touchdown, which would be kind of below what we're expecting out of a Boise State performance with what we've seen from them. So even on the low side, like getting that touchdown cover is pretty nice.
That's a really nice number. If you like Boise State, get it before it goes up to 7, because I do think it's going to go up to 7.
Definitely going to go up to 7.
Yeah. But that's it for this week's episode of the College Football Pick'em Pod. A lot of bets out there. So if you're listening, you could have a full slate. Do as we say, not as we do. Will, do you have anything else you want to end here with, or are we good to go?
I wonder if anyone listens and actually bets because of it. Because if you do, thank you for trusting. If you don't, you've been pretty smart to stay. At least, like I said, in the whatever, the against the spread, I'm like 59% or something. So we're going heavy spreads, not as many over-unders. Our percentages are going up. We're feeling really good. So ride with us this week. Thank you so much for listening.
Yep. See you next week.